To me, James Harden is known for three things: the beard, drawing cheap fouls, and trade requests.
In my lifetime, no doubt about it, James Harden may be the most controversial player of that time frame. Whether it's him getting to the free throw line a million times a game, or doing that little step back three that is so obviously a travel, and flopping while shooting that three and getting an and one. But during the speculation and frustration, one thing was for sure: James Harden was a stud at basketball. The man put the ball in the net a lot. And when he was at the top of his game, he was like a top 5 player in the NBA. But ultimately, he wasn't able to achieve the highest form of winning, which is winning an NBA championship. Basically because the Golden State Warriors existed, which is a conversation we'll have another day. But outside of winning a championship, he's actually done everything you can ask of a player. MVPs, All-Star appearances, scoring champions, All-NBAs, a top 75 player. The man literally did it all. He was just flat out good at the game of basketball. But the two things that are obviously missing from James Harden's arsenal are loyalty and commitment. End of the day, I'm all for players getting paid. Like, actually, I want players to have full control of their destinies. If it's not working out from a team, ask to get traded. Like, it doesn't really matter what the media says about you. It's your life. But with all that being said, James Harden takes that to a whole new level. Yet again, for the third time in 3 years, James Harden requests a trade out of Philly.
James Harden has decided to opt into his $35.6 million contract for next season, but now him and the 76ers will work on a trade of the 10-time All-Star out of Philadelphia.
And the trade itself is probably good for the 76ers because it gives the team a better opportunity to find another player to play alongside Joel Embiid and budding star Tyrese Maxey. But end of the day, the fact that he requested a trade 3 times in 3 years is wild to me.
And so he's bypassing free agency and he's going to try to force a trade. And few people in NBA history have more experience in forcing trade than James Harden.
And we're not even talking about how he basically asked his way out of OKC early in his career due to money and playing time. And I remember thinking at that time when he was getting traded, being like, okay, that makes a lot of sense for OKC to move him because he can't pay him as much as he wants. But, ship Harden somewhere to give him the opportunity to play more. And ultimately, it ended up working out for Harden because he probably would never become this player if he didn't get traded to Houston. So after all that, it worked out. But at this point, this man has developed himself a real track record. Why would any team or any person trust him that he won't just request a trade from that location? Brian Windhorst explains what happened behind the scenes that got us to this point.
What he's done here is, first off, guarantee himself $36 million, which he wasn't sure because the Sixers weren't engaging with him like they were a year ago. But he is now going to basically turn his back on the Sixers, the team that he was arm in arm with just a year ago. With Daryl Morey, the guy who he's been with for almost a decade now. That is all breaking up, and it's because basically he didn't like what his hand was in the open free agency market. And so now we have a circus.
This entire trade saga obviously starts when he requested a trade out of Houston. And he asked for a trade for several reasons. But one of the main reasons was that his GM, Daryl Morey, left Houston for quote-unquote stepping down on his own accord, which basically means he either got fired or they made an agreement to say, hey, listen, we need a new voice in the team, so you got to go somewhere else. And then ultimately, Daryl Morey ended up in Philly as the president of basketball operations. Then the fire sale happened with the team where everyone was getting traded. Westbrook gets moved and a bunch of other players get moved. They bring in a bunch of bad players or they're expecting to tank. And at this point, to be honest, I don't really blame him for leaving. He spent 9 years there, and in the NBA, that is like dog years. That's a long time in this current NBA. It was kind of time for both of them to get a fresh start, new voice in the locker room, get some assets for Harden, go somewhere else, win. Like, at the end of the day, like I said before, he's done everything. He won all these personal accomplishments. Now it's quote-unquote time to win. So after all this, he says his preferred location is Brooklyn. Then he gets traded to the Nets. And he gets there, he's super happy, like smiling all the time, really excited, seems energized, seems to be like fully rejuvenated, and it looks like he's gonna be there for the long haul, right? Nope, the beard does it again. So right around the time where like things were starting to heat up, like, oh, James Harden's not happy there, he might want to be traded, there was like this rumor going around gaining some steam that the real location he wanted to play for was the 76ers, which is like not new news. Everyone was kind of like, okay, that makes sense because Daryl Morey's there, it's a perfect match made in heaven, he knows how to build around James Harden, X, Y, and Z, that's the place he wanted to be. The things will come to a head in Brooklyn with all the Kyrie drama, and then ultimately ultimately James would request a trade from the team. But reportedly, he didn't want to do it publicly because he was concerned about the backlash. Well, duh. If you start asking for trades every single week, people are going to start criticizing just the way it works. Then he gets traded to Philly, and the same cycle would happen. My man is super happy to be there. Everything is great. He's smiling, excited, super rejuvenated, like I said before. Then the exact same thing happens. He asks for a trade, and then he gets Doc Rivers fired in the process. And reportedly, the team fired Doc Rivers with hopes of convincing James Harden to stay and be happy with the team. And here's actually Doc Rivers talking about his experience coaching James Harden.
Did you like coaching him? Was it okay? Like, how would you rate the experience?
It was challenging.
Sometimes when you make decisions, there's consequences. And when you request to be traded 17 different times, you're gonna get chirped. It's just the way it goes. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Because end of the day, he should be able to do what he needs to do to make it work for his career. Because it's his life, it's his career. But at what point is it just him moving teams because a little something doesn't go his way, or just a little adversity comes at him and he's headed out of town? Like at first, you could be like, okay, I understand him wanting to be traded out of Houston because he wanted to win. It was time for a change. All good. Then he ends up in the Nets. Okay, you know what? I'm going to give another pass because Brooklyn's an absolute disaster. Whether it's the Kyrie Irving stuff, whether it's Kevin Durant, whatever, it was an absolute disaster. Then he ends up on the Sixers with a perfect opportunity to actually win a championship, and then he wants to leave? Maybe it's for the money. Maybe it's the fame. Maybe James Harden doesn't like a coach. Or maybe it's just the type of guy James Harden is. And I'll leave this video off with something that the late, great Kobe Bryant said about James Harden that we should have all listened to.
James Harden, of course, crazy streak this season. What do you think of what he's doing right now?
I'm not a fan of in terms of winning championships. I don't think that style is ever going to win championships. But at the same time, you have to keep your team's head above water to win games. So you have to do what you have to do to win games. And he's doing that right now.
So are you saying you don't think James Harden and the Rockets, as constructed, can win a title?
Not with this style of play, it won't win.